Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the 3D Critic channel. Today I'm going to give you guys my performance review on the Jordan Zion 4s. Now when it came to the Zion 3s and the special edition, it was a good shoe. The traction for the most part was pretty good, nice and grippy. The cushioning was very good, insanely responsive, had a really nice bounce on both versions. Materials, they were on the cheap side of things, but they still got the job done and they were comfortable. Lockdown and support were pretty good as well. However, they were notoriously narrow when it came to the size, and it was very unbearable when it came to how it felt when you were playing in the shoe. And the traction itself was a literal dust magnet, and I had to pick up huge gunks of dust when it came to the traction setup itself. So that was kind of annoying to deal with, along with the notoriously narrow fit. So with the Zion 4s, I was curious to see if they remedied that and if they had any other additions to it as well. Now, starting off for the price, they are going for $140, just like the Zion 3s. So if you guys are interested, they are available on Nike.com right now, and I will leave a link in the description box below. Now, to start off, when it comes to trying them on, at first they are quite difficult because you do have to open up the laces to first get your foot inside the shoe. And secondly, the drop-in midsole that you get, it has these grooves embedded into the midsole itself that sticks to your socks, so it does kind of stick, and it therefore makes it harder for you to get your foot inside the shoe. However, it does break down over time, so the longer you wear it down, the easier it is going to be. So as long as you break it down, it's going to be pretty straightforward. Just open up the laces and you're going to be fine after a good while. As far as sizing, I would go true to size to get like a nice snug fit. The width is just right, so you're going to have some nice snugness when it comes to the width. However, for the length, they do run a little long, so you are going to experience some desk space, especially when you were trying to move forward and stuff like that on hard stops. So yeah, I would go true to size. If you want a more relaxed fit, I'll probably go up half the size because of the snug fit that you get. And as far as for narrow footers, you should be fine going true to size as well if you want that snug fit. As well as for wide footers, you probably need to go up a half size, maybe a full size if you have a really wide foot. And at that point, I would avoid it generally. Because the higher size you get, the longer it's going to be, and there is a good bit of dead space when it comes to the length of the shoe itself. So if you have a wide foot, I would probably avoid these in general. But if you are a narrow footer, go down, go true to size in that case. But if you want a more relaxed fit, go up half a size if you need to. Now, moving on to the traction setup, you're going to get this full-length translucent outsole with this radial pattern that looks like waves going up and down the shoe. And as far as how it grips, they're actually kind of grippy, but they aren't as grippy as the Zion 3s in my opinion. But it did help hold its own when it came to how grippy it was on the court. It does pick up dust, but not anywhere near the level of the Zion 3s where they were just literal dust magnets. So I didn't really have to wipe it down that much. It picks up a little bit of dust, and once it does pick up, you just wipe it off and you're going to be fine. And as a result of that, lateral movements felt pretty good going side to side. I did get a little slip every now and then, but it did hold its own, and I was pretty much consistent at that. For vertical movements, hard stops felt good as well, but I do slide sometimes when it comes to getting like a quick first step. At first when I was playing in it, so you do have to kind of warm up the rubber just to get that initial grip if you want to get a quick first step. But initially, you do slide a little bit, so it was kind of hard to hit the ground running when it came to like a quick first step. As long as you break it in over time, it will start to improve if you warm up the rubber and the more it acclimates to the floor itself. For durability, it's actually surprisingly durable. I haven't experienced any signs of wear, considering that the grooves are very thin, but the rubber itself is kind of hard, like rock hard in a lot of places, and I don't necessarily see any signs of wear throughout the outsole itself. So you should be good to go indoors. Outdoors, however, because of the thinness of the rubber itself, it will probably start to wear out a good bit, like maybe like a few times if you're playing them outdoors. So as long as you're indoors, you're going to be more than fine because I haven't experienced any wear. And as far as how it feels overall, in my opinion, it is a pretty good grip profile with a lot more consistency when it comes to a clean court and a dusty court compared to the Zion 3. So that is a definite improvement when it comes to the consistency of the traction setup itself. Now, moving into the cushioning, you are going to get a removable Cushlon 3.0 midsole. And as you take out the midsole and zoom into the shoe itself, you can actually see that there is a full-length zoom strobel unit, which is a nice surprise. And it looks kind of similar to the special edition of the Zion 3s where I had a drop-in midsole and the embedded zoom unit right underneath it. and it feels exactly the same, especially when it comes to the forefoot cushioning. It's a very nice responsive setup, feels very lively with the zoom strobo unit, so you're gonna have a nice kick under your foot, and it has a surprising amount of bounce as well, considering that there is no shank to give you that springboard, diving board like effect. So that is kind of a surprise. However, over time it will start to bottom out and it won't feel as responsive. So that is like the only downside when it comes to the setup itself. Without the shank, it's not going to keep its rigidity when it comes to the midsole itself. However, as you move into the heel, the cush line itself feels nice and soft, and it is very forgiving because you are sitting directly under it, so you're going to have some nice compression in the heel, while it not feeling too mushy because you do have the zoom strobo unit right underneath it. And combined with that, impact protection feels nice and overall when it comes to the heel strikes, and it is a solid improvement, especially with the Zion 3's back half of the shoe being really clunky. But in the back of this, it isn't as clunky and it is a little more rounded out, so it's going to be a little bit more forgiving when it comes to the heel cushioning itself. And the same can go with the fluidity as well. It feels a lot smoother when it comes to the heel to toe transitions in the 4s compared to the 3s, so it pretty much eliminates the clinkiness that you got from the Zion 3's. So heel to toe transitions feel really smooth, and it has a surprising amount of snap considering that there's no shank. So with the cush line combined with the zoom strobo unit, it does have a nice fluid feel while being snappy, and it felt pretty easy going up and down the court and running in these especially. So yeah, in my opinion, it is a nice improvement, retaining to what the 3s had when it comes to the cushioning setup in the regular and special edition, with the responsiveness and bounce, and at the same time getting rid of the clunky feel that you got from the shoe itself in the 3s. Now, diving into the materials itself, you are getting this molded synthetic material here in the forefoot, and it also extends into the back half of the heel as well with the molded collar that you get in the back. And you're also going to get some more textiles here in the forefoot with the shiny textile here, with some textile mesh around the peripheral of the shoe itself and the lateral and medial side of the shoe. And the tongue itself has a nice padding. It is a independent tongue, so it is a separate tongue, but it has a decent amount of padding at the end of the day. And the same goes for the padding in the back itself, which feels pretty nice. And as far as how it feels comfort-wise, the material does need some time to break in because they are initially kind of stiff, and it was pinchy at times, especially in the beginning. And as long as you break it in, it feels overall average at the end of the day. It still does pinch every now and then. But it didn't really bother me that much. In the midfoot, the tongue is independent, so I was kind of expecting that there was going to be some lace irritation, but surprisingly, the tongue is wide enough that way you don't experience any lace irritation throughout the midfoot itself. And the padding of the tongue itself is nice and forgiving, so you won't have any irritations in that front. And the same goes in the back. The padding is nice and molded, so you're going to have a nice, comfortable feel in the back. So I didn't really have any issues as far as the padding is concerned, just the pinching that you got in the forefoot because of the stiff material itself. When it comes to the aesthetics itself, the look of it is pretty simple. It's basically a really low-cut shoe. However, I do like the colorway that I got specifically, especially with this metallic silver that you get with the synthetic itself. It gives it a nice shine to it, and it kind of makes it stand out. And the contrast of the green foam as well as the rubber is a nice touch. That way it stands out a little bit more, and you do get a nice reflective patch in the back with the Zion logo that you get, which is pretty nice. But at the end of the day, the materials, as long as you break it in, it is fine. Just be sure that you need to break it in. Padding on the midfoot is nice as well as in the heel, but the aesthetics of it is pretty simple, a lot simpler compared to the Zion 3s. And it is a little bit more robust because of the textiles that you got on the 3s itself. It was very thin compared to this, where they're a little bit more substantial. But the colorway itself pretty much makes it stand out with the look itself. But at the end of the day, the materials are comfy at the end of the day, but the aesthetic itself is simple, but the colorway is pretty nice and makes it stand out. Now, when it comes to the lockdown, to me, I find it to just be average. It starts off strong in the forefoot, and it just slowly degrades the further you get back into the shoe, as I'll explain in just a second. Firstly, in the forefoot, because of the snug fit, you're basically not going to move when it comes to side action for lateral movements especially. The length runs a little long, but you don't experience any shifting, especially because of the grooves that you get from the midsole itself. It prevents your socks basically from sliding forward in the shoe, so I didn't experience any sliding when it comes to vertical movements too. When you move it to the midfoot, it is just average. Like I said, the lacing system is integrated with the materials, but because you have an independent tongue, it isn't as wrapped as I would like with a semi-gusset tongue, so it was a little bit iffy when it came to the lockdown of it. I did slide a little bit here and there, and the tongue does move every now and then when I was playing in it, so that was average at the end of the day. It didn't really bother me that much, but it was something that I have noticed. But in the heel, you do get very noticeable heel slippage, probably due to the midsole stack that you get in the foam itself, and you do sit directly above a Zoom Strobel unit, so you're basically sitting very high in the back of the shoe, and it was very arched like this much when I had it initially, and I took out the midsole, which was kind of surprising to say the least. So yeah, you are going to experience heel slippage at the end of the day because of the midsole stack and the Zoom Strobel that you're going to get, just like in the GT Cut 2s that I've experienced with the double stack of cushioning that you got in that. So it was kind of similar to that when it came to the lockdown. So you will experience it every now and then. It will improve over time, especially with the padding that you get in the back. It does mold to the back a little bit. That way it prevents it, but you are still going to notice it quite a good bit. So at the end of the day, lockdown is just average, with the forefoot being its strong suit, but as you get further into the back, it just slightly gets worse. And last but not least, when it comes to the support, it gets the job done for me, but I did run into a couple of issues, which I will get to in a second. Firstly, when it comes to lateral support, it starts from the midsole itself, where you get a good sidewall basically wrapped around the entire midsole itself. So you're going to get coverage from front to back when it comes to the lateral stability inside the shoe. However, for the counters on the shoe itself, the midsole is arched inward and it caves in as you get down to the outsole itself. So you are going to be very prone to getting an ankle roll every now and then if you are landing on a slight angle, which I experienced firsthand, so that was kind of an issue to deal with. You do get some containment from the foam a little bit, that way it keeps it nice and contained, and you do get a little bit more rigidity in the material itself, but you are still going to experience some rolls, especially if you are in an awkward angle. You are going to roll your ankle at the end of the day, which is kind of unavoidable at that point. But with what you get, it just gets the job done. As long as you're on a flat surface, you're going to be fine. And it continues forward into the midfoot. You do get this plastic cage that gives you a little bit more containment, so you're going to have some containment in the midfoot. And as you move into the heel counter that you get is nice and robust, so you're going to have some nice stability there. And you do get a nice rounded outsole in the back, so you're going to have some nice stability in the back. For torsional support, it is good in terms of how rigid it is, but there is no shank, which is kind of a disappointment, because the more you break in the midsole, the more it's going to bottom out and it won't feel as stable, especially inside the shoe. So over time, the midsole itself is going to bottom out and it won't be as stable inside the shoe. However, for the shoe itself, it has some nice rigidity to it, especially in the midfoot. You do get some nice rigidity there, and it doesn't contort that easily. However, as you break it in over time, it will start to degrade when it comes to how rigid it is, and the outside of the shoe is just going to lose its stability when it comes to the stiffness of the shoe itself, especially when you break it in over time. But the base of the shoe is wide in the forefoot, but it does get narrower in the back, so you are going to get a little bit of teetering here and there, especially in the back half of the shoe. And the outsole itself is not necessarily flat. There are a little bit of instabilities in the forefoot. You do get some bump outs and the outsole caving inward a little bit, especially on the outer portion of the outsole itself. So that was a little bit weird, but once you apply pressure to it, it didn't really become that noticeable when it comes down to it. As long as you apply pressure to it, it was a certain amount of flatness, and I didn't really have any instabilities at that. However, over time, it will start to degrade when it comes to the overall supportive feel that you're going to get. Initially, it's good for what you get. It gets the job done, but over time, just be mindful as the midsole bottoms out. It will start to lose its rigidity and balance, and the same goes for the shoe itself. While it is new, it is kind of stiff in the midfoot, but over time, it will start to lose its rigidity and it won't feel as stable in the long run. So as it's new, it gets the job done in my opinion, but over time, it's going to slowly degrade as you start to break it down. So to sum it up for you guys, the Zion 4s to me feel like a slightly mellower version of the Zion 3s in my opinion, especially when it comes to the traction setup. It has a more consistent base when it comes to a clean court and a dusty court, so you aren't going to have any inconsistencies there. But in the 3s, the traction is a little bit more aggressive when it comes to the grip profile that you get. Cushioning feels the same, but in the special edition, it kind of feels similar to that in retrospect compared to the Zion 4s. Materials are a little bit more substantial, so you're going to have a little bit more material when it comes down to it compared to the 3s, where it was just a thin textile mesh. But the lockdown and support do take a hit. They feel a lot more mellower when it comes to that, with the lockdown being just average and the support being good, but over time it will start to degrade. Compared to the 3s, where the lockdown was very good and the support was pretty good too. So it is kind of a pickers be choosers kind of thing. If you want more support, I would go with the 3s. If you want the same performance when it comes to the cushioning, I would go with the Zion 4s because they're a little bit more forgiving in the heel. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a pickers be choosers kind of thing. If you want something more consistent, go with the 4s. If you want something more supportive, go with the 3s, the regular and special edition. If you want to save money, I would go with the 3s because they are going for a ridiculous price, around $60 at that. So it does offer similar performance when it comes to the 3s and 4s. So if you want to be on a budget, go with the 3s. If you want something more relaxed when it comes to the fit, I would go with the 4s. But at the end of the day, it's a pickers be choosers kind of thing. If you want to save, go with the 3s. If you want something more consistent, go with the 4s. Thank you guys for watching this video. This has been my performance review on the Zion 4s. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment down below on which one you think is better. Are the 4s better than the 3s? Are the 3s better than the special edition? Are they both better than the 4s? I would like to know your thoughts on that, along with any other questions that you might have. If you'd like to stay up to date with future videos that I'll be posting, hit the subscribe button down below. It'll greatly support the channel as well. And if you would like to see my reviews on the Zion 3 regular and special edition, I will leave it on the corners of the screen right here. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, all that information will be in the description box below. I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your day. I hope this was beneficial to you guys. And until next time, keep shooting.